Rolling. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Nick and Joe podcast. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good, all considering with, the quarantine and kind of the change within our household. Evie settling in really nicely. So
Nice. That
doing
is,
pretty good overall.
yeah, that's good news. Not a lot to report on in the world of gaming. I feel like everything's like a little bit stagnant at the minute as far as gaming is concerned. Because we are just in that weird time where we're just waiting for that next gen.
Yeah.
And nobody's really interested. I mean, there's, the titles are obviously slowing down. I guess any developers that were in the middle of making titles are now probably thinking, well, we're gonna wait for the next gen, which I guess makes sense. But what we are going to talk about today is our experiences of mental health and medication, because obviously, as we all know, and everybody knows somebody who's going through some sort of bad time, whether it's regularly as a one-off. And we've done our own videos on this, me and Nick, but I thought we might get maybe a bit more out of it if we could ask each other questions. So what I wanted to start off with, Nick, was asking you the first time you sort of realized there was some sort of issue in your life.
I always kind of knew there was an issue as far as like ADHD. I always knew I had troubles in school. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't sit still. I asked too many questions. So I noticed that really, really young, but I don't think I really thought too much about my mental health until middle school. Because I was going through depression, and my mom actually forced me into therapy, and that's when I realized something was actually wrong. So I went to therapy, and it did help a lot, and that kind of solidified, okay, I have this going on. And then when I was in high school, it was more anxiety related. So it started off kind of depression with hitting puberty, and then turned into just like anxiety from then on out. And anxiety does run in the family, particularly in the woman of the family. So I was fortunate enough to kind of have people around me who knew what was going on with myself and could talk to me about it a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about because they say that statistically you are, I mean, it's not a great huge increase, but they say statistically you are more likely to suffer, especially with depression, if you are female.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they have stuff like postpartum depression after women have had children, which seems to be quite common. But I do sometimes wonder if is that because, do you think that's possibly because it's not, classically and historically it's seen as not a masculine thing to do, to stand up and admit that you have some sort of mental health problem, whereas, I mean, there's a stigma for everybody, not easy for anybody, but more so for men, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, men have higher suicide rates, so I think that kind of speaks for itself. When you have more women diagnosed, but more men are committing suicide, then clearly there is a lack, or lack of understanding within the men's community, or lack of compassion within the men's community, and just in general too, right? Like, women do it as well. I'm sure some boys have heard from their mothers, like, suck it up. But I think they tend to kind of bottle it up until they can't handle it anymore, as opposed to seeking help. I do think because women are considered the more emotional sex, that it's easier for us to talk about the things that we're going through. To be honest, in my experience, I noticed that men are more likely to have depression, whereas women are more likely to have anxiety. But I do think women are more diagnosed because they do seek out help.
Yeah, I'd probably be inclined to agree with you on that. Because it's interesting that you say that, though, because interestingly, and by the way, on what you said, like, you're right. Like 3/4 of suicides are men, which shows there's obviously a really big problem. But my first experience of mental health issues was I would have been 17, I think. And I was actually just at home on my bed, and funnily enough playing Final Fantasy X. I'll never forget. I was playing Final Fantasy X, and I suddenly had this what I didn't realize was a panic attack. Out of nowhere. I had zero stresses, zero worries, really, like compared to a lot of people, and I didn't feel stressed or worried, and it was really odd, like because I didn't understand it. I didn't know whether I needed to be vomit, or I was just like, and it sort of went away. It went away sort of after I sort of felt weird for a couple of days, and then it was just gone. And I just thought, well, I don't know, I was just ill. And then when I was 19, I was starting to have panic attacks a little bit, and I kind of came to terms with what they were. But stupidly, I didn't say anything because, I don't know, like the age 18, 19, if you have like a serious sort of like schizophrenia or psychosis or anything like that, it's at those years that it tends to manifest, like fully manifest, especially in schizophrenia. I don't know the full reason behind that. Obviously, if I'd have reached out and got some more information, I'd have realized that I didn't have schizophrenia. I didn't really think I did, but as you'll know, as an anxiety sufferer, you start to think the worst straight away.
Yeah.
So I just thought, well, I used to think, if I tell people this, then maybe they'll just think I'm like nuts, and I'm not nuts. I know what I'm doing. I just feel strange. And I sort of had like a bad weekend where it sort of really hit hard, but then again, over time, sort of 8 months or so, just completely went away until I had my full breakdown at 30, which I've spoken about in more detail before. Now, the difference from when I was 30 to what happened when I was 19 and 17 was just like, it was just so much worse, to the point where I couldn't go on like pretending that, like, and just getting on with my life. It stopped me in my tracks. The strange thing is, I think I had some depression as well at that time. I hadn't had it before, but for me, for some reason, and this is why I come to realize that everybody's so different every time, is that I think I was just becoming depressed because of this being constant state of anxiety, and then but I never, even though it used to make me feel fucking terrible, like I feel like I was lucky because I never felt like I didn't want to be here. I never felt like I wanted to harm myself or anybody else. I used to just hope that it would get better, kind of knew it would get better, but then I'd start to question it. Then I'd question how long I'd been ill for and why I wasn't getting any better, when some people are fine after 6 months, 8 months. But yeah, what I came to learn was that I started speaking to people, because I was like, I'm not pretending this time. I'm just gonna tell people. And most people, you talk to them and then you find out that they either know or they have actually been through something similar, and it makes you realize that you kind of not the only one. But I don't know whether, when you hit that point where I feel like I could have maybe gone one of either ways, is it because that actually I didn't, in real life, I didn't actually have that much to worry about? So if I didn't have that much to worry about, really, like, I've always going to have a roof over my head with the family I've got around me, if I don't earn money for a while, I'll be okay, I wonder if I'd been in the position where that had happened to me and I couldn't work for a while, and I didn't have anything to fall back on, and then I can't rent my place and I end up in a bed sit, you know, what is that the point for a lot of people where it just suddenly becomes sort of unbearable, and maybe it's previous experiences or past traumas that then send you even further down the spiral? It's really difficult to know. Really difficult to know.
I also think, different people have different sensitivities to things. So there are some people who have a fantastic life. They don't really have anything to worry about, but they are extremely and severely depressed. And then there are other people who have everything in the world to worry about and are okay, and I don't think there's a problem with any of that. Some people might be like, oh, well, you have no reason to be depressed, or how are you so happy when you have nothing? I just think biologically inside of us, we each have different tolerances. We each have different triggers. I know for myself, I'm a very sensitive person. So my emotions tend to last longer. They tend to be stronger, more easy to sway. Whereas, Snack Daddy is a very stoic person. I've only ever seen him kind of cry once when Mocha passed away. And other than that, he's very stoic. So I think that, you could have gone either way, because of course what you're dealing with does have an effect, but part of it is internal too. So even if you feel like, oh, well, there's nothing I really have to worry about. I hate that kind of feeling that we feel like we have to justify, this is why I feel anxious or depressed. I have nothing to be depressed about, so I shouldn't be. And why am I? It just makes us feel worse. And that sucks.
It's strange, because in a way it was like, at least I'm not having to worry about anybody else right now. I can be completely selfish. I've not got to help anybody else or pull anybody else up or look after kids or whatever. But then there's this kind of, well, if I don't know what's causing this, then how can I get better? So I was kind of like, and that's what kind of led me to this sort of, well, maybe, obviously we know that past traumas and bad things happening to us can lead to different mental health disorders, but also I believe that it can just happen. It can just happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think some people are just biologically, prone to that. And it does suck to be like, well, there has to be a cause. But I think the cause is just biologically it's happening. You're prone to it.
Yes.
It's something. I personally think that for most people, mental health is something you're going to deal with for your whole life. There are some people who are one and done, they have depression and it was just a period, or there was a triggering event. But for people who have chronic anxiety or chronic depression, it's something that you deal with for your entire life, because biologically you are geared towards that. And, that sounds kind of depressing, but honestly, I actually think it's great to accept that, because when you accept this is the way that my mind works and I'm more prone to this, you can learn to manage that for your entire life. You can learn to work with it. I think it's the people who think, oh, well, I should be better now and this should be gone forever, that end up relapsing worse and worse and worse, versus learning, okay, this is lifelong and what are the tools that I need for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I came to a point, so those first few months I was like, why aren't I getting any better? And then it was just after a while, and I sort of realized I have to push myself a little bit. Not to the point. Now, obviously I'm no medical professional or whatever, and you shouldn't be pushing yourself to the point where it's going to really knock your confidence if you go to do something and then you end up letting people down, or you can't, or you have to go home because you're feeling too anxious or depressed, or you shouldn't be pushing yourself to the point where you're going to really knock your confidence. But what I found was, once I'd sort of accepted that maybe this is ingrained in me a little bit and something that I might have to deal with for a long time or potentially the rest of my life, I was just like, well, maybe I'll just make the best of it. And then I sort of started to get to the point where I am now, where I didn't think I'd ever get, it's like, once I resided to the fact that I could just make the best of, I just had to make the best, then I tried. I pushed myself a little bit, and slowly but surely just got a little bit better as time went on. But again, and then that's why, again, when you come so far, you know, if you've got other problems, you know, in your life, which I haven't had really, bar my mom getting cancer, but she's all good now. You kind of think, well, that could easily lead people back if they're not 100%, you know, if they're not feeling a lot better. And actually, that was the thing.
And have the tools too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And actually, when that did happen, so I always worried that, you know, if something bad happened or there was a situation, would it just send me straight back? You know, and when Mum told me that, it was just like, obviously it was absolutely horrendous, and there's so many people who know what that feels like. But actually, it as concerned and worrying as it was, it made me feel a little bit anxious for sure. But it didn't send me backwards. You know, it didn't put me back in this hole. And that might have been partly because something takes over a little bit. When you need to be like, you have to be strong or there for somebody. Or part of that is, like you say, coming through it and dealing with the tools.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because like, if you had a panic attack now, Nick, you like me, you know, I
know how to disarm it before I have it.
Yeah.
So I can feel it coming on, and then I know what I need to do. Whereas, you know, before, I did kind of experience something similar to you, where I didn't understand why things were happening. Like, I cried a lot when I had depression, like constantly, every single day.
Yeah.
And my parents would be like, "What's wrong?" And I would say, "I don't know." And that wasn't like me not wanting to talk about it. Like, I genuinely did not know why I was crying. I just felt so overwhelmingly sad, and I had no idea why. You know, and that's so upsetting. And then when you're having a panic attack and you just feel off and you feel like you can't breathe, then it's like, oh my God, something's happening to me. What's going on? I can't breathe. And that's just going to make it worse and snowball. So I feel like when you have the tools and you know what's going on, and you know that, hey, this is just a biological thing, or that this was triggered by this event, just being more aware and having the tools to deal with it, I think is so helpful. Because I know when I'm, you know, having a panic attack or going to have one before I even have one, I can feel my heart rate kind of elevate. I can feel that I am maybe looking around a little bit more, feeling a bit more on edge. And then I know what I need to do to prevent that from happening. And that tool is something that, I mean, has been so helpful for me, because panic attacks really suck.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that we are getting worse with mental health issues with regards to how many people have mental health issues? Or do you think that we are just diagnosing people more readily now, and that you know, people are getting proper care and we've got proper statistics, whereas before maybe people were going around undiagnosed and everyone just thought that it was something that happened to very few people?
Yeah. You know, I think it's kind of an either or both situation. It could be either. It's probably both. I definitely think more people are getting diagnosed. Like 100%, I think that is absolutely going on. As for people having more mental health issues, that's hard to say, but I will say that we live in an age where we are constantly with social media bombarded with, you should be this, you need to look like this, you need to do this, and if you say the wrong thing, you're attacked. And I do think that is causing a collective raise in anxiety and depression. I mean, that's just not a good thing, to constantly be plugged into other people in a situation where they can essentially be incognito and say whatever the hell they want to you without really any repercussions, because of course then they're going to say the worst. So I think it's both, to be honest.
Yeah. I probably agree. It's interesting what you what about the stats with suicide among men compared to women and that sort of thing. It's also interesting that if you are, and this is what I hate the most, going back to what we were talking about, what I hate the most is when a celebrity kills themselves, a millionaire kills themselves, and people are like, how could they be sad? They've got all this, and it's like, well, why would they do it? They had the world at their feet, and what else is interesting is on the back of the celebrity culture, because you are more like I looked at the stats, and you're more likely to commit suicide if you're a celebrity. Like, that's the thing. And obviously you can kind of understand that because of like, if you're a reasonable person, because you're often, if you're a celebrity, you're probably in the public eye. People are probably hiding behind their computers and saying all sorts of stuff about you, whether you're a good person or you're a bad person or whatever.
And the pressure and stress and long hours.
Yeah, for sure. But I feel like it's strange because it's almost like most people sort of know that like that kind of pressure has effects, and then when a celebrity does take their life, they're probably, it's often the same people who are buying trashy magazines or sharing videos or pictures of them, like because they've got like a small patch of cellulite at the top of their right thigh, with a big red ring around it, going, look at this. It's like, yes, that she's a real person. Actually she is a real person, because what you normally see is like fucking garbage, Photoshop filtered, perfect bullshit which simply doesn't exist. They're the same people that will then be like, oh, so sad, I'm praying for such and such and suicide awareness. You'd have seen it, no doubt, on social media. But then also on the back of that, from what I was reading, is that suicides and suicide ideation, if there is like a run of a lot of celebrities who commit suicide, it has an effect on normal Joe public committing suicide as well. It increases people, especially in the Western world, the likelihood of other people committing suicide. Because now I went to I've had a few different types of therapy, some good, some bad, but I went to like I'd already studied a bit of meditation stuff, which I found an incredibly useful tool. Again, it's not something that's going to cure you, but it's one of the tools, right, that I use for dealing with it. I find it to be pretty effective. And once I'd finished this cognitive behavioral therapy treatment, she put me in direction of this meditation class, and I'd already done a bit myself. Now, the problem with this class was a lot of the time, a lot of these people were still really ill, and it turned into a bit of a group counseling session, which was not the idea. But obviously, you're not going to stop. They didn't stop people from talking and sharing their experiences. But there was this one guy in there who was really depressed. And I mean, so physically, you could just see how physically depressed he was. Not that he was trying to look that way. You could tell just by looking in his eyes. It was really sad. But then Chester Bennington from Linkin Park took his life around that time, which is obviously a huge celebrity for people sort of our age, a bit older, a bit younger. Like, a lot of people grew up listening to their music, idolized him, and then I guess if somebody's like your idol, and then they take their own life, these people that you look up to, it's not that. I don't think it's that, oh, they've took their life, so I'm going to take mine. I think it's, my idol couldn't even deal with this. This person that I held in such high regard has struggled so much that they couldn't take it anymore. And it's interesting that has a knock-on effect. Like really scary as well, because if you think something like that can have an effect, you the hope that you get off the back of that is, well, surely then we can have the effect the other way. And that's what you like to think. But what do you think about therapy? What different types of of therapy have you been through, and what did you find useful and what did you find not so useful?
Yeah. So I've been in therapy off and on pretty much since middle school. I highly recommend it. I also do take medication, which I know some people agree with, some people disagree with. I think that each individual kind of has their own
Yeah.
treatment plan for them that's going to work best, whatever that is. Some people are totally fine without medication. Some people need it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
But despite being on medication, I do think that therapy is still necessary
Yeah.
because the medication gets your anxiety and depression under controllable levels, whereas the therapy is where you learn coping
Yeah.
strategies and tools that are going to help you manage your emotions and thoughts and yourself really as a person. So I do weekly therapy, and with the passing of Mocha, things have been a lot harder.
Of course.
So, now we're doing twice weekly therapy for a little while. I've also done group therapy, and that one was kind of hard for me having social anxiety. And that's really
Mm.
actually what got me streaming was kind of I had this like support group of really nice people. Because before it was like, oh, there's no way I could do that.
Yeah.
But group therapy, I kind of thought it's gonna be BS, to be honest. I thought it was
Yeah.
gonna be stupid. And it actually was life changing and so incredibly helpful. I really can't understate how amazing it's been for me. I think the biggest thing was just seeing everything that everyone else is dealing with, because when you're
Mm.
dealing with depression, anxiety, you feel very alone. You kind of feel like the odd one out, or something's wrong with you, or you're broken, or why can't you be normal? And then when you see that normal people have this is normal.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
normal to be anxious sometimes and depressed sometimes.
Yeah.
And yeah, people have it in varying degrees, and maybe yours is outside of the range of normal, but
Yeah,
that's
of
okay.
course.
There's lots of people like that,
Yeah.
and you can get it back into a normal range. I've also done some ACT, which I forget what the acronym stands for, but there's ACT therapy. I think it's acceptance commitment therapy, I think is what it is.
Right.
And we've done some of that, and I've been recommended by both my group therapists and my personal therapist to do DBT, which is dialectical behavioral training.
Hmm.
So that's currently what we're working with. So there's actually a workbook that me and my therapist are going through together that
Hmm.
teach DBT coping skills,
Yeah.
which I'm very new to, but just kind of reading the premise, I think for me in particular, it is geared towards me. I can see why I've had it recommended to me so many times by so many different therapists, and I'm very excited about it. But I know there's CBT as well, like cognitive behavioral therapy, which I've also, done a little bit of. I've kind of tried a little bit of everything. Like the
Yeah.
nice thing is though, you can pick and choose, right? I mean,
Of
something might
course.
work from here and something might work from here.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they will kind of mesh really well together. And the other thing is with us having so many options of therapy, it can be kind of overwhelming, but if you work with your therapist, they'll be able to help you figure out what really fits for you and
Yeah.
make it really easy. It's really not as overwhelming or daunting when you have a therapist who kind of knows what you need, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So when I never had any sort of therapy until I had my breakdown at 30, and because I was at uni, I was fortunate because obviously we have a National Health Service, but the mental health side and coverage is limited because obviously that is so expensive. So first of all, I went to see a counselor at uni because it was free. It was through the university, obviously partly paid for. So I thought, yeah, that's great. The first therapist I saw was not great. She was like, I went in there because like I said, I was just going to be completely honest to everybody about what I was going through, because I didn't see any point in being otherwise, and I'd had good feedback from people and good bits of advice and stuff. So I thought, well, I'm doing the right thing. I laid everything out. I told her absolutely everything. I answered any question completely honestly. When she was really sort of insistent on talking about my mum and dad's separation. which, and I was like, I didn't want to be like, I was just answering all the questions because I'm not going to be like, oh, hey, no, I don't want to talk about that, because it genuinely didn't bother me talking about it.
Yeah.
But like, it got to the point where, I wanted to say to her, look, we'd spoken about it quite a bit, and I felt like it wasn't helping but I didn't want to be like, oh, I didn't want her to think, oh, I'm trying to push it away. So I just kept. Yeah. But genuinely, it's not really ever something that's ever really been in my headspace a lot, because I was fortunate, because literally moved around the corner from where my dad was. I still saw him in the week and then stayed at the weekend. I never saw anything bad happen between my mum and dad. There wasn't any big, reason or incident that was the reason for them breaking up. So it really wasn't a traumatic time for me. And in that sense, I'm lucky. But she was absolutely adamant it was stemmed from that. So I actually switched. And then this other woman I saw seemed so much. She was just so much better. And she actually got me to talk about a few things that I definitely hadn't realized, like not to do with, not much to do with the past, but like a past relationship and stuff like that, stuff that I knew, but I wasn't aware of, if that makes sense. So she sort of talked that out of me, and it was like, wow. I didn't expect that, because you think you completely know yourself. So she was and the difference, though, because that could be somebody going in for therapy the first time, and they probably paid for it as well, and it'd be like, well, that's not for me. And I guess if I was to give advice to anybody, I'd be like, if you don't feel like you're getting anywhere, then, or making any progress, then don't just give up on that. Try somebody else, because the difference was astronomical. And then when it got to the part where, when she was satisfied that, one, I was making better, and two, we'd sort of gone as far as we could go with talking in that way. I did do the NHS cognitive behavioral therapy. I'd already done quite a lot of research on that, so it wasn't a lot of new stuff to me, but I was really lucky because the woman who was actually doing it, she was actually a qualified psychiatric nurse. So she probably knew a lot more about stuff like that specific mental health medication than a lot of GPs, a lot of standard doctors, who have to know about, not that I'm not knocking them, but they have to know so much. Like they're not as specialist as this mental health nurse who only had ever dealt with psychiatric medications. But the CBT wasn't that helpful. But I mean, I was a lot better by then. I'm not saying it's not, and you shouldn't try it. Like I say, it's different strokes for different folks, right? As well. But I'd encourage people to try everything, and it might be one thing might work, one thing might not work. One treatment might be more profound. You might find that a combination of treatments just makes you feel so much better. But so it's a bit of a strange, and then I went on to the meditation, which I feel is really beneficial. But then I feel like I knew there's people in the group who didn't feel they were getting much out of it. But that was group, and I'd never done group before. Like you say, it's quite intimidating before you go. The first thing that I noticed, because people were in there for depression, people were in there for anxiety, people were in there for OCD, people were in there for all sorts of different ailments. The first thing I realized is the woman sat next to me is a teacher on the verge of retiring. The other guy's the guy next to her is the guy I told you about, who was like probably a couple of years younger than me, who couldn't work because he was so depressed. There's a girl next to him that's got bipolar. She's really up, really down the next week, and she's really well spoken. The next is a guy who works in a factory, and you realize that this affects everybody, like everybody. everybody was so different. Class, different class, different age, different experiences. Some people through traumatic stuff, some people through never experienced traumatic stuff. Like, it just made it very clear that this is something that can happen to absolutely anybody.
Yeah, 100%. That was very much my experience with group as well. Just seeing that it doesn't, discriminate. It doesn't matter. Anybody can deal with this. Anybody can deal with this. Which was very eye-opening and in a way comforting too. Again, you don't feel so alone when you're going through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, if you, and like the stereotypes for all this sort of stuff, like a stereotype for somebody that cuts themselves would be like probably like a teenage girl, right, or something like that, who would cut her arms, or it's just but there was this guy that'd been cutting himself for 20 odd years, in this, not fatally, luckily, but like you just saw this big guy and you think that, you just would not expect it because of the way we've been conditioned. You wouldn't expect it. That's something that teenagers do, and often they'll get told that they are doing it for attention as well. Like, shit. Would you like scar up I mean, don't get me wrong, there probably are a very small minority who have done that, but like, would you really want to cut up all your fucking arms to get attention? And I don't think so. But one of the biggest problems going around that group therapy seemed to be medication.
Yeah.
People's experience of medication.
Yeah, same with my group.
So what was your first and what are your experiences of medication?
So my first experience is actually really interesting. So I had depression because of puberty, so it did eventually work itself out.
Yeah.
But my first experience was actually in a trial for a medication.
Wow.
And I was actually given the placebo. So I thought I was taking a medication and I did not take a medication. But that was one of the easiest and quickest and cheapest ways to get me in therapy at the time. And it was through like a legit facility. So my mom went ahead and signed me up. And I was in the placebo group. So I thought I was taking something and I wasn't.
Right, okay.
And then I was on birth control at a young age because I had a lot of like reproductive issues.
Yeah.
And that actually is sometimes prescribed for anxiety, especially in like obviously in women. But especially if you have, certain symptoms of heavy menstrual cycles or dysmenorrhea, anything really going on with that, because of the hormones, it does tend to make you anxious. So a lot of women do get like more anxiety or more depressed around their period. So I was on birth control, and that actually, I feel like, I don't know that it helped as much as it should have. One of them did make it worse, but overall I feel like it wasn't so bad. So it wasn't, I don't think, until maybe high school or even college that I went on Zoloft. And that was really the first time that I felt some kind of relief. And Valium, that helped a lot. Mostly because when I had anxiety, even though it was a persistent anxiety, my panic attacks were frequent and bad. So the Valium was very helpful.
So just to jump in quickly, for people who aren't in the States, Zoloft is a brand name for sertraline, I believe.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Sertraline is the name that like you're probably familiar with in most of Europe. And carry on, Nick.
Yeah. So I'm on Zoloft now currently. Yeah. I'm on a higher dose though. So when I felt a little bit of relief from it, I was on such a low dose. And I am sensitive to medication, so I wanted to start off low, but we've slowly been I've been brave enough to amp it up. And it does help. You, of course, want to monitor your medications really closely with a health professional.
Yes.
because you risk going over, and then that can have adverse effects like being numb or actually making depression or anxiety worse.
Yeah.
But I'm currently on Zoloft. I'm also on Buciprone instead of Valium. So they didn't really know it at the time, I don't think, but Valium can cause issues with memory. I've also been on Klonopin, which is similar to Valium. And both of those are supposed to cause issues with memory. And I do actually have a lot of memory kind of issues. I'm really quick to forget names, or if me and somebody have spoken about something, I'll forget that we've spoken about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because I was on it for so long. I mean, a really long time, and a fairly high dose. So the first thing that my new psychiatrist did was say, "I don't want you on that anymore." That was the first thing she did. She was like,
Yeah.
"No, no more of that."
Yes.
So now I'm on Buciprone, which does not have that effect. It's not quite as strong in that it doesn't make you feel loopy or high or
Yeah.
tired,
Yeah.
which is actually really great because it's really helpful for my social anxiety in particular, because it keeps you calm but not sedated or kind of loopy. And that was one of the things that she said as well, is if you have social anxiety, something like Buciprone is really great for that. So I actually take that. I will say too, before my first Twitch stream, and actually before my first few Twitch streams, I had to take anti-anxiety medications because I was so nervous.
So you
So I did have
use.
to take my like emergency medications.
All right. So you generally use the boo. Well, I've seen this
Yeah, the
mentioned.
Buciprone.
Buciprone. I've seen that mentioned on forums more and more, and it seems to be the way of that the doctors tend to be going now, rather than Valium.
Yeah.
And the we tend to call it diazepam.
Yeah.
We call it diazepam. Interesting story about that, actually. My grandma has suffered with depression for quite a part of her life, and when she was younger, after she had her fourth child, the last one, she went to the doctors and they put her on diazepam.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked if they were addictive. The doctor said no, because this was the 60s,
Yeah.
so they didn't have a clue. Like, but it turns out it is pretty addictive. Because that, and I think that's one of the biggest problems, isn't it? It's like you can so quickly adjust to that dose, and it does nothing anymore. But if you take it away, so I think at one point, they had her on 50 milligrams a day.
Yeah.
But now she takes 5, I think. And it's funny because the GP said to her, "Why don't we try and come off them?" It's like she's 84. Like, why now? Why would you go through that? Like, and the withdrawal, like at 84, like what benefit are you gonna get? But it's strange how they used to think that it was completely completely not like non-addictive. But the big difference, I think in the States, aren't they more inclined to prescribe, is it Ativan?
I think so. I've actually had someone try to, my psychiatrist tried to put me on that.
Yes.
But because I had experience with Zoloft and had positive experience with Zoloft, we opted to go with Zoloft instead. And then if the Zoloft wasn't working the way she wanted to, then we were going to go on Ativan.
Because so my experience is, when I had the bad breakdown when I was 30, and I knew, I was like, I need some help. Like, it was so bad that I knew I needed, like, I was never like against taking pills myself. I didn't have anything against anybody, and I wasn't like, you shouldn't take. I was like, no, I'm ill. So it was like just after my 30th birthday, and I went to the doctor, managed to drive down there, and I nearly couldn't go in the surgery, which is alien to me now, like that I could feel that way. And I spoke to him, and I was like, look, he encouraged like exercise and stuff, and I was like, but I get it, like I do. Like I'd been running that all that summer. I'd run a couple of half marathons, and like I'd been training for that. So I was doing loads of exercise. I was like, look, no, look. So he prescribed me the sertraline, Zoloft, and he says, oh, you can take it. You can take it either in the morning or at night. These are side effects, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, cool. Drove back home, and I'd felt a lot better, and then I thought, maybe I just won't take them. Maybe I'll just see how, leave this a bit longer and see how, and then if I feel bad, I can start. But then just before I went to bed, I was like, no, do you know what? I'll take it. I should just take it. So I took it, and then like I woke up with a bad stomach at like 3 a.m. I was like, but I knew that was coming and whatever. Felt a bit weird. But then the next day, I was just crippled with anxiety on the sofa, like 10-fold. Didn't take another one. And then 3 weeks later was when I got really bad. Got prescribed a drug called metazapine, which I believe you call, let me check, Remeron, it's called. And it's different to all the rest. Now, the doctor told me it would help sleep as well. And I was like, why? Is it a benzo? Like, because I didn't really want to go down that road if I could help it. And she was like, oh, no, it's just a different type of antidepressant. I have still to this day haven't met anybody under the age of 60 that's taken this medication. And the weird thing about it is it's also apart from it being an antidepressant, it's not an SSRI though. So it's not like it's not like Zoloft or sertraline or Prozac or fluoxetine. It works differently. But it also works as an antihistamine. Now, I was like reading all the like comments and stuff on the forums, and it's like these people are like, oh, I'm really tired, but my hay fever is 0 because it's like ridiculously strong antihistamine. But I was just like, at the time at first, because you take it at night, and half an hour later you are ready to go to bed.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't seem to lose its, like, anybody who's even taken like Benadryl or whatever you have in the States, like drowsy antihistamines. You're just gone. I was just out, and it didn't lose its potency at all. Like the doctor kept telling me it'll get better. You won't be tired through the day anymore, and it just didn't wear off. Never wore off for a long time, and I basically came off it slowly, and it was really hell every time I dropped. Even just small amounts really was bad. But I got through that, and then I was like, do you know what? This has never really worked. And then I started to feel a bit rough again, so I was like, I don't want to get bad. Tried venlafaxine, aka Effexor, as it's known in the States, or Effexor, and it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. And then that was when I finished uni, and once I got over the first week of feeling really nauseous and ill and whatnot, I was like, this is what the medication's supposed to help you feel like. It's not a cure. It doesn't just snap you out, but it sort of allowed me to just, like, you can just deal with things all of a sudden. You can cope with things. You can start to plan things. You can start to, you don't have a sense of dread or so much worry, and that helped. That then gave me that support to then help me kick on and make my life again, which then in turn obviously helps you feel more confident and better within yourself. But so there are a lot of people who are very much against it. For me, you just got to find the right one if you really need it. I do think maybe I know it's the same in the States. I do think it's the same in the UK. Some people will go to the GP and just say, oh, I feel a bit down. And the first thing is well, let's get you on this. Well, and I don't always. I think, well, you know, you should look at your diet. You should look whether you're getting out enough. You should look at whether you exercise. But I guess it's difficult because you don't want to be. I guess if you're a GP, or if I was a GP, I mean, what if somebody walked away and they were really ill and you could have helped them and you didn't, and you know they end up taking their life, or it's not easy, I guess. But we know that these SSRIs are so incredibly effective in like 60% of people, or something like that, which is really, considering they don't completely understand how they work either, is pretty crazy. I wonder if in the future it'll be like, you know, going for an eye test, you need these you need these lenses. Okay, my eyes, I can see. They'll scan your head and it'll be like, okay, you need this drug, and it's just like, that's it.
Oh, absolutely. I think they already do have blood tests where they can tell you. In fact, I know they do because I've been recommended to have it. They have blood tests where they can actually tell you what kind of medication is more likely to work best for you.
Right.
I think they do that based off of your chemical imbalances that they see. That was something that I was actually recommended to do. I never did it because I went on Zoloft, because I know for me, one of the things I deal with most is anxiety and OCD. So I deal with a lot of OCD thoughts and kind of repetitive circling thoughts and obsessive thoughts. And so with the Zoloft, it does quiet that down. That's how I know when I'm doing well, is when it's like, oh, I haven't thought about that in a while, or oh, I have so much space to think about stuff, as opposed to like my mind's constantly fixated on something. But I don't know. It's something that I'm interested in. Maybe I'd do it just to see, you know, I mean, why not? But it is really fascinating. And I do think that eventually that will be more mainstream, and maybe even the default is to send you off to get checked for it.
So have you read anything about other forms like plant medicine, i.e. ayahuasca, or they're using apparently having really successful trials with ecstasy, aka MDMA, very small doses, and these people it'll be completely medical, professionally controlled.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about their experiences, and the results are absolutely staggering. You know, how this treatment can work. And also microdosing psilocybin, which is the active ingredient found in magic mushrooms.
Yeah, that's the one I've heard most about.
Yeah, and it's a similar sort of thing. And I guess from what I read, I don't know, I'm not an expert on it by any means, but from what I read, it's kind of like about letting go and being, you're almost like, yes, you are being taken on a journey or a trip, and you've got a counselor, your shaman, maybe an ayahuasca. You know, you could go to the forests of South America and do it properly, but the way I see it is sometimes your shaman's the doctor, and they're gonna take you through it. They're gonna ask you the questions, and you're gonna learn to let go of these various problems or ailments. And it's the research and what they are finding is so exciting. But we also know that if a drug like, for instance, MDMA, ecstasy, or psilocybin proves to be incredibly helpful, there are a lot of drug companies that go without a lot of money. Yeah. And this is the problem, because, you know, these drugs, I know firsthand, these drugs from these big pharma, they're not a placebo. You know, they spend a lot of money making these drugs, and there's a reason, you know, because they do work. Because otherwise you wouldn't bother. You really wouldn't. But will the pushback be, because it's not as big a thing here, because we have a National Health Service, and we will get our drugs for the same price, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It costs the NHS varying amounts, though, just like it does for somebody who who is getting their drugs in the States. It's all different.
Yeah.
If it's a newer drug, patented, that's still under patent, obviously you pay a lot more for it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I wonder if the pushback will be from in the interest of the government, who we know that a lot of the governments are backed by these big pharmaceutical companies because they've got so much money. They fund their campaigns. It's no secret. Everyone knows. And I wonder if that will sort of hamper what we are finding out about these. I mean, ecstasy, MDMA is a controlled drug, right?
Yeah.
So are magic mushrooms. Well, they are in the UK. So people, and I guess there'll always be those people who are like, well, that's drugs. That's drugs.
Yeah.
They're recreational drugs. That you shouldn't be. It's really interesting though, and anybody who doesn't know, who is interested, do look it up about the psilocybin. Do look up about the MDMA, and all the studies from all over the world are pretty conclusive. They still need to learn a lot more about it.
Yeah.
But the way it's going so far is really promising, and that's why I asked the question. Do you think one day it will just be like, hey, we're gonna right? We've talked to you, we've scanned your brain, we know this is the problem, now we'll fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be probably a blood test. But yeah, I do think, yeah, I mean, because that's what they're doing now, and I guess if it's a chemical imbalance, the best way to tell that would be the blood. But I don't know. I mean, if they could get to the point where, especially because the brain is so poorly understood compared to some of the other parts of the body, if they could get to the point where they could scan our brain and kind of see more, they kind of do that already to a degree, but I don't know that it's just at the minute that they don't have the full understanding. They still don't 100% know. They know that obviously taking these SSRIs stops any serotonin being reabsorbed, and so it continues to produce serotonin, so it creates more serotonin, but then that doesn't explain why it takes sometimes 2-3 weeks for it to start working, because it's instant. Like if you take MDMA, aka ecstasy, it's within half an hour, it's boom, you're overloaded with serotonin straight away. So they don't fully understand. They have a better understanding. I read a thing where they think they're beginning to understand why, and it's actually that the serotonin causes something else, which latches on to something else. Obviously I can't explain this at all, but they still don't understand why these drugs are even working. So yeah, like you say, it is poorly understood, really poorly understood. Yeah. Although that's not to say, if someone does need help, don't be scared to take like an SSRI. They work for a lot of people. They've been used for a really long time. And something's going to work well for you and something's not going to work well for you. So if you're like, I'm going to hold out for, the mushrooms, like they might not work well for you. Just because it's natural doesn't mean it's necessarily superior or going to work better for you. So yeah, I love my Zoloft. I mean, is there something better out there for me? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe in the future there will be something that works more effectively, and I'm certainly look forward to that. And
with less side effects.
Developing more. Yeah, for certain. Because the side effect that I face most with all of my medications, with the bupropion and the Zoloft, and then having been on Valium and Klonopin, it's always been fatigue. I have always been really tired. Every time I've upped my dose recently, and like I'm tired. That's just my side effect, is I get really tired. So I actually take my Zoloft. Like they told me in the beginning to take it in the morning, and I was like, yeah, no, that's making life hard. So now I take it at night. But yeah, I mean, if they have a medication that doesn't make me tired, why not? Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe something that works better. Maybe, something that I can take a lower dose of and it works just as well. I mean, I certainly look forward to seeing where this goes, because I'm not at all opposed to medication. I think that, if somebody had like a lifelong thyroid condition, they would have to be on a medication for that. If somebody had cancer, they're going to take chemotherapy.
Yeah.
And just like somebody who has an issue within their body, so do we. It's just, I mean, it's up here, but it is a chemical
Yeah.
imbalance. It is a biological thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, if you aren't shamed for taking medication when you need it for like an infection, why would you be shamed for needing it with a chemical imbalance? You know?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
because it relates to emotions, a lot of people are like, well, just pull
Yeah,
up them
yeah.
bootstraps.
I mean, we'd all love to be, you know, on zero medication, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is a trade off. Like you say, yours is fatigue. Mine's like
Yep.
like night sweats.
Yeah.
Like horrendous. Sometimes not at all, and then sometimes it's like I'll wake up and I'm soaked, and it's like, geez, I've
Yeah.
changed the sheets like 3 times a week because
Yeah.
like it's just so disgusting. But then I think, well, is changing the sheets 3 times a week better
Worth it?
than yeah? And the answer is yeah. Every time it's yes.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I tried the sertraline and citalopram,
Mhm.
and couldn't because they just made my anxiety tenfold. But
Yeah.
having said that, when I tried those two, it was already through the roof. So maybe it was just that at that time, it was just getting through that first week, 2 weeks
Yeah.
was just too much. Which would have
Yeah.
been just too much. Whereas, but this SNRI Effexor, I take the lowest therapeutic dose because the original plan was to go like the next level up, but I had to get used to the first, and I was like, do you know, I feel okay on this, so we never did.
Yeah.
But it's good to know that you've got some room as well, you know, should things take a turn for the
Yeah,
worse.
definitely.
But the other thing is from what I've experienced, because I had 3 bad experiences and it was the 4th one. So you can see why people say, you know, these pills don't suit me. You know, I've tried a couple, they don't suit me, because I was that person. And then I found this one and it changed my life.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, I'm on my 5th therapist, and like this is the only one I've been with. I think I've been with her for like a year now. You know.
Yeah.
I switched therapists. I was like, don't like you. Don't like, nope.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
isn't
exactly.
working. This is not for me. Yeah, this isn't right. And
Yeah.
I'm on my 5th therapist, and I now am with someone I want to be with long term.
Yeah.
So it can be disheartening when you go to someone and they're the wrong person. For example, I had someone who was like, basically think happy thoughts. And I was like, not going back to you. And like, the thing is, I get how he could be the right therapist for some other people, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's just so, you know,
Yeah.
everything is so personal with this, you know, don't give up. The medications are really personal, personal.
Yeah. 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 They are.
Everything really is, you know,
Yeah.
even like if you take natural medications, like when you think some people smoke marijuana and like they're A-okay, they're feeling really good and relaxed.
Yeah.
Other people get mad panic attacks, you
Yeah.
know,
And psychosis
like
as
with
well.
everything.
Like it's
Yeah. There is actually marijuana-induced psychosis.
psychosis.
Fun
Yeah.
fact. But
yeah.
everything's so, you know, personal, and it's hard to say don't give up, because I know like if you're in that situation, you're already kind of feeling defeated and like you want to give up anyways.
You just want
But there really is hope. It might take a while, but there is hope. You
Yeah.
know, it could take months, it could take years, you know. But I will say it'll take forever if you don't actively work on it, if you don't actively seek help. Like it took me years and years and years to find the proper help, because for a long time I was instead working all the time and distracting myself and trying to pretend it wasn't there, or just laying in bed, like just not really trying to find an answer.
Yeah, it's so hard when you're in that situation, because you need this motivation to do something about it. You know, you can have the best friends and family around you. I was very lucky with that, but you still need to find it within yourself to do something about it, which is hard because it's the last thing you want to do.
Absolutely.
But you got to push a little bit, just push a little bit, and
yeah.
And I feel like it's like most things. The more you try, the easier it gets. And then one day you think, geez, it must have been an hour since I even thought about being ill.
Yeah.
Because you get in that cycle where I just constantly think about how anxious I am, or people think how, and then the days when you suddenly are like, wow, I didn't think about that for, at first it's like 5 minutes. It's like, I didn't think about that for 5 minutes. And then it might be an hour and you think, geez, and it sounds ridiculous, but those moments are massive because you think, all I've been doing
they're the greatest.
Yeah, because all you've been doing for months and months and months is obsessing about the same things. And then all of a sudden it's like, geez, a couple of hours passed and I was just like a normal person, you know, as whatever that is, you know, just going about your life and doing your life, just living your life and not worrying about this this dreadful illness. But I really live in hope of what's coming in the future. There's so like the other thing I mentioned, the ayahuasca is like a really strange one, because it is like this weird. It's a plant it's from a plant that grows in South America, and it is like hallucinogenic, and it's a similar sort of thing. Like some people go to South America, like to these tribes, and go through it, and they say they experience some amazing results. The problem that we have in, like, I know in Europe with it is that there are a lot of charlatans who pretend that they are there to help other people, and really they're not really qualified to do that sort of thing, and they don't know what they're talking about. And because it's not a properly controlled thing, it can be a big problem. But I had a friend, and she absolutely swears by what it's done for her. She basically said, she went on this, so she took this, it makes you feel really, really ill. You know, you're gonna vomit. You need to have a bucket. You're gonna have to vomit, and then you're gonna be tripping. But she basically, the way she described it was, she went on this journey where she was going through all the things that, you know, bothered her from her past, you know, abusive ex and all that sort of thing. And it was almost like a filing cabinet, going through that, taking it, looking at it without judgment, almost away from herself, of almost like filing it away. And obviously she still knows that it happened, but it's very strange to me, like, you know, because I don't think there's even been proper studies on it or anything like that, so I wouldn't, it's not something I'd just recommend anybody to do. But it seems like, with what I've read from the psilocybin and MDMA, that it's a similar sort of, it's that sort of idea. The idea is that you are learning to let go. And there are drugs that can unlock part of your brain that helps you do that, which of other times you wouldn't have any use for at all. But going back to the marijuana thing as well, I wonder if, because there are how many states that tolerate marijuana now? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
There's a few where obviously it's I don't actually believe it's completely legalized everywhere. Like, you can only have so much, right? Or whatever. And you can only sell so much.
My state doesn't allow it.
No. Well,
I know that.
Either way, I think one of the biggest problems that we've had in the past is, with no regulation, you don't know what you're smoking. And then, like, it became about making, you know, crossing all these different plants and making the most potent. And that's where it becomes, like, really dangerous. And I used to smoke years ago, before I had like any problems it for a couple of years. But I did a load of research into all the different types, all the different plants, and they were all so different, like so different. Like there's a mix of, there's the plant's basically made of, like, I think it's like indica, and
indica and
sativa. Yeah, right. So like, and then that's just one part of it though. Like there can be a mix of like 60-40, 70-30, and then they're all so different, and they, some of them obviously have a different type of buzz or a different type of and I think that we know that it can help a lot of different things, and I'm hoping that with the regulation is that we actually get not just the recreational, but the the medicinal, more of the medicinal benefits out of it that we have.
I suspect we will.
Yeah, as and it's a better understanding of what people are doing as well. We know the drugs laws didn't know anyway. It's not like anybody pretty much, bar a few countries, probably anybody on the planet can get hold of it if they want to or know somebody. Pretty much any drug. If you might not, so might not be regularly taking drugs, but you know somebody who, and even if you don't know somebody who could get it, you know somebody who knows somebody that could get it.
Yeah. Is this the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon?
Something like that. You know somebody who knows somebody who knows who Kevin Bacon is. You know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who could get it, who could get whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
So like, I mentioned this before. Like Scotland, customs sees 1% of the heroin that's smuggled in Scotland. 1%. So why are you even bothering? And that cost them that cost them millions and millions and millions of pounds to enforce, and you're managing to get 1%. So we're doing something wrong, right? We're doing something really wrong. I don't understand when all the research shows that every drug research, all the research that's ever been done on drugs is conclusively shows you shouldn't be locking people up for possession or being addicts. Yes, we should be locking up dealers, drug lords, kingpins, of course. But like people who are addicted to heroin, what do you get out of locking them up? Nothing. It just costs you. It just costs you money. It literally just costs the state money. And then prisons are also riddled with drugs anyway. It's like people are going to take them. Nobody's ever been able to stop it. No country in the world can stop it. The only people that have better rates are people that will kill you if they find it or lock you up for 50 years for being in possession. Like there's there is and no, we're never going to do that. So why are we bothering? I'm not saying that we should be like, hey kids, let's try heroin, because but like and another thing, we're talking about the pills. I mean, we know that oxys are a massive problem.
Yeah.
They're a problem over here. They're a huge problem in the States. And then what happens is because you get addicted to it so quickly and you need so much more, then heroin becomes cheaper. Like heroin becomes cheaper than buying all these pills, because these pills are like really expensive in the end, because you're having to buy so many. People end up turning to heroin, and it's like, but the oxys are a prescribable medication.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of baffles me that you would willingly, like, there are good uses for them and they're needed. But like you would make it a controlled substance at the same time, and make it to the point that you've pushed it underground so that people are spending hundreds of dollars a day on oxys, like, and the government are getting nothing from that, like nothing.
Yeah.
And then
I think it's a good case for, more mental health awareness and more mental health resources, because I suspect that a lot of these people who are addicted, did I say, I say addict, and I know that's wrong because Snack Dad always corrects me. Addicted?
Yeah, addicted,
But yeah, I know when somebody is addicted to a drug, I mean, they're probably going through some stuff. I mean, addiction itself is considered a disorder. And to be addicted in the first place, there are many ways you can get addicted, but a lot of those people I suspect probably do or started out with mental health issues.
Yeah.
So I think if we had more resources and instead of sending people to jail, sending them to get clean, but not just to get clean, because I think a lot of people get clean and then they relapse, like to get clean and then long-term mental health care, I think that would likely do a lot better. It might go a long way.
I think I spoke, I've either spoken about it on the podcast before, I spoke to you about it briefly, Nick, where the Portugal model, where they decriminalized possession of every drug. We decriminalized all the drugs. Dealers are still going to go to prison. They're still going to get locked up. We decriminalize all the drugs. If you get caught 3 times, you go to a panel that consists of a doctor, a social worker, and some kind of like a judge or ex-judge or law enforcement. And between them, they work out the best course a plan for you. Now, it might be that a kid's been caught with weed 3 times. They're not going to go, right, well, you're an addict and you need they get serious addicts in as well, but they also give these addicts clean needles. They give them a place where they can shoot up if they're homeless. Now, nobody wants that on their doorstep. This is the problem. But the thing is, their rate of AIDS and HIV has dropped so dramatically compared to what it was through sharing needles and intravenous drug use. It's just kind of and this happened. This is 20 years. This has been going on in Portugal. All the results speak for themselves. And after an initial spike of drug use, not massive, but a little gain. Use of pretty much every drug on the spectrum decreased. Every single one. And you've got the rate of infection in HIV decreased so dramatically. I don't know how that other countries are not adapting this.
Yeah, it's strange that we can see things working and we are still like, no, we won't adapt that because XYZ, or because it won't work for this reason, or because it has this downside. And it's like, you clearly see this working. Like, this isn't a theoretical thing. Like, this has evidence showing that it works, and we still don't adopt it. That's baffling.
Portugal had a huge drug problem. They had very high unemployment, and it was spiraling. And they said, we're going to do this, and they were the experiment. But it's been 20 years now. And we've seen the positive impact it's had. It's not a perfect system. Of course, you still have drug addicts, but why? So on a documentary I once watched, the UK said, the Home Office, which writes all the letters to end like petitions and anybody that asks, they were approached and they said, we are aware of the Portugal model, but we have no plans to implement anything like that in this country. And I was just like, how have you not? How can you just ignore that? But absolutely bizarre. But I mean, I hope most people are now coming around to the idea that actually marijuana on the whole is not that bad. You shouldn't be smoking it when you're a kid, that's for sure. But and it's not going to be. There are medical benefits as well, but for most people, it's probably not going to benefit you at all. But we know it's not as bad as alcohol. We know that, right?
Yeah,
we just do. Yeah, we have alcohol, whatever. So I hope that we come to a point where we are at least decriminalizing the rest of the drugs. As far as I'm concerned, marijuana should be legal. I'm not saying it's a good idea to smoke your brains out every day. I don't think, and I haven't touched anything like that in the best part of 10 years. So I don't think it's a good idea. But I think if somebody wants to smoke a bit of pot in their back garden, and they know what they're doing, and they know the risks, or they know what they're smoking. Yeah. They're not going to go out and beat somebody up, are they? They're not going to end up in.
Has that happened? I mean, I guess it's like you have the psychosis. Yeah, sure. But I'm saying, short of the psychosis, I'm like, The only thing I've beat up is Doritos. I mean, like,
Yeah. I think the argument is, though, from the research and everything I've read, is that if that happened, the cannabis-induced psychosis, there would have probably been some sort of other trigger for you at some point in your life anyway.
Yeah.
Like they say these, like when certain events happen and people get like have a serious, delusional mental illness, they think that it's, it's just there, it's just waiting for a trigger, and it probably will happen at some point. So but we know how many people die every day through alcoholism, just simply through being an alcoholic, because their body's given up every day. Tens of thousands of people across our countries every day die from alcoholic poisoning every day, not because they've just drank because they've been drinking too much for years and their body just says no. And how much it costs our, it's different in the States, but it costs our NHS every weekend because of people getting paralytic in town, people fighting in town, because they've had too much to drink. But you can give them ecstasy and they're not going to be fighting.
Yeah. Have you ever had your mind hit you with a stupid joke? It just
yes.
Or no?
All the time.
Okay, good. So I don't know. My mind just hit me. I feel like I need to explain myself because anybody watching is probably Nick's just over there cheesing. My mind hit me with a stupid joke. I was thinking about how alcoholism tears family apart. It's not good, and it tends to be, if you have an alcoholic father, then you're probably more likely to be alcoholic. And all my mind came up with was with weed, the family that blazes together stays together. And I was fine, please. I was oh my God, you need to know. Where did that come from?
Nick is an advocate for blazing together with your family.
I mean, I am, yeah. So I don't smoke right now. With my anxiety, also it's illegal. So of course I've never smoked here. But if it wasn't illegal here, my family is very pro legalization.
Yeah, mine too.
I mean, all the way back to my grandparents, right?
Yeah.
It's just, we don't see anything wrong with it.
No.
So my family has a very clear stance on it altogether.
Yeah. We had, so from our government a few years ago, our drugs minister at the time said that he would rather, and he actually ended up being put under pressure to resign after this. Now, so he was a drugs minister, and he was obviously an absolute expert. He knew everything about drugs. That was what he did. That was his thing. So any new directives, to do with new medications, or he knew everything. He knew all the research. He knew all the studies. He said that if his kids, teenage kids, or 18, 19-year-old kids, were going out, to a club, or they were out in their town, he would rather that they were taking safe amounts of ecstasy than drinking at all. Again, I'm not condoning that or think it's a great idea, but if somebody who is an absolute expert is saying that, that's either that ecstasy's not that bad. I don't think it's a good idea to nail ecstasy every weekend, because I've seen what it's done to people who didn't let it go weekend after weekend.
Definitely.
And not that they have any really bad mental issues, but cognition's slow and But how bad is the alcohol then?
Oh,
if they're
horrible.
saying that.
I mean, if I was caught drunk driving, my mom would fucking tear me a new one.
Yeah.
Versus
yeah.
blazed with my grandmother. So there's a clear I think that most people are becoming aware of the fact that marijuana is okay, it's marijuana, it's whatever, anything you can get addicted, don't let it control your life, just video games or TV or your phone or anything, course. Right?
Yeah.
But I think most people, even the older generations, are now marijuana is not so bad, but drinking is very serious. Drinking is worse. And if drinking's legal, it's very strange that marijuana isn't.
Yeah.
So I think people are definitely coming around to that. I think the people who disagree and who don't want marijuana legalized, honestly, I think it's more of just conditioning than really looking at the facts. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that objectively. Like that's kind of what I see when I meet someone who feels that way.
Yeah.
Is that it's more that kind of ingrained, this is a drug, this is bad, growing up with like DARE. What did they say? I don't know.
Oh.
Don't do drugs, or what did DARE stand for even?
I can't. Do you know when one of the things that really stands out from my time at school in Virginia was I think I told you we had these police come in and they were handing out like Trump cards, like, but with police officers on. And they'd like have ratings, and they were like trading cards, but with like, and one like there's a cop like dusting for prints on the window, and then another one is like a cop like with his gun out and stuff. It's like, wow. But I remember I had this dog, and the song was just like, it was just basically, he used to have this puppet dog, and it was like this song that it sung along to, like put the tape in, because I'm a boomer. Tape, put the tape on, and it would be this dog singing it, and it was just, the message was over and over again, don't do drugs, don't do drugs. And you look back now, like,
talking about
how dated now is that, like, as a form of drug education? Just don't do it. But why? What? No, just don't do it. You don't do it. Like, but that was perfectly acceptable. Yeah, just don't do drugs, but then kids be like, no. And then kids get curious. It's like, okay, you could, well, if you're honest, and like, you could take this and you'll feel euphoric, you feel this, but you also, this might happen. And
we do need to be more honest. It reminds me of like, that like, if you whack off, like it'll fall off kind of like mentality. Like, you just don't do it because you'll die. Like, versus like education.
I just need to Google something.
Okay.
If you will it fall off?
People have actually been told that. You don't touch your PC because it'll fall off. And that's kind of like what the don't do drugs is to me. It's like, don't do drugs. Why? I don't know. You'll fucking die, man. I don't know. Just don't do it. It's like, no, like, educate them. Actually teach us these things. Because I think like with knowledge is power. Like, some people are still going to do it, but if people actually realize what they're doing and the safe amount, I mean, that can only be helpful, and some people might hear the side effects and be like, I'm not gonna fuck with that, so
I
definitely think there needs to be better education.
I think there's still a lot of places that are really guilty of it as well. I remember watching everyone in the States knows Gordon Ramsay, right? Chef Ramsay. Well, he did this
idiot sandwich.
He did this like 2-part or 3-part documentary called Gordon Ramsay on cocaine, and I thought like that was literally the name of it. He wasn't actually
was he really on cocaine?
No, that's what I thought when I didn't catch the full
Misleading.
I didn't catch the full trailer, and I saw the end of it. It was like Gordon Ramsay on cocaine, and I was like, what? Like he needs a pick me up, that guy. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
But it was just basically like he went to like the coca plantations in like Peru and Bolivia and Colombia, and then like spoke to the gangs, and then it, all the way up to getting to the UK and like the small time dealers, the bigger time dealers, and they were like, he was out with the police and they were randomly stopping drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And they stopped this guy who was driving and tested him, and he tested positive for cocaine. And it was like, they made this huge like deal out of it. And I'm saying you shouldn't be doing that, of course.
Yeah.
But he answered them and he was like, I didn't touch, and they were like, he had a child in the back of the car. But on the camera, he's like, well, I had some on Friday and it was Monday.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, they can't test you whether you're high still. They can only test whether it's in your system. So obviously, like, from my knowledge and the research I've done, it's like, well, he's not going to be high anymore, or very very unlikely. And like it takes 72 hours to work its way out your system. Now, of course, I'm not saying it's a good thing. And one of the biggest issues with cocaine is not just the addiction, not just the potential addiction, not just how it can ruin your life. And I've seen it happen to my best friend with drugs and coke. Like the trail it leaves, the murders it leaves, the people who are being exploited, and the gangs that it fuels. But straight away, the media was saying, and they were making out like this is, you catch drunk drivers in every town every day, right? Mm-hmm. If I was to get in a taxi and unbeknownst to me, the driver was under the influence, would I rather he was on cocaine or would I rather he was on been drinking? Yeah, hands down, I'd rather he was just sober. But if I had to choose, I'd rather he'd been on coke.
One star for that Uber.
Yeah, yeah, because he got me there. No, 5. 5. He got me there really quickly. And he talked to me the whole way. But I know I'm not saying that's okay. But what I'm saying is it's interesting that even the media, even people who are supposedly educated, still make these presumptions about drugs and still say that having a bit of a drink is all right. And I'm not saying it's not. I think everybody should be able to do what they want, to be honest, as long as they're not affecting anybody else. You shouldn't be on the roads, whatever. You're not affecting anybody else, then it's up to you as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but there's so many things that we've become so advanced with and moved on from, and drug laws and drugs are just not they're just not there at all.
Yeah. So I will say that when I Googled DARE, because I was curious what it meant.
Yeah.
I found an article that was was DARE effective? It's from Live Science. I actually like that website too. I trust Live Science a fair amount. So, I haven't read the whole article, obviously, but I will say that they said DARE was and is completely ineffective at preventing drug use. But I did want to say that they opened the article, even though I haven't read the article yet, they opened the article with hey kid, want to smoke some crack behind this tree? The officer would ask. Nah, I've got basketball practice, the student would reply in unison.
Yeah.
And I'm just I think we all know why that didn't work.
I mean,
the lamest thing ever.
I mean, I did really want to go and smoke some crack with you back there, officer, but turns out I need to work out on my shooting because I can't score from downtown. So
the more realistic response is, dude, you're fucking 40. We're in high school. Why are you offering me crack?
Yeah, that'd be away. Yeah, I'm
scared you're gonna touch me.
Yeah, you're a fucking weirdo. Leave me alone. I'm definitely not smoking crack with you. I'm gonna smoke it with my
even
friends.
if I wanted to smoke crack, you wouldn't be the woman.
Yeah, you'd be the last person. But it's it was always it's always this. Oh, hey, try. These reenactments and stuff. And it's the film. Try this. Pushing.
That's
pushing.
How it goes.
I'm not saying people do it because of peer pressure.
Yeah.
But nobody. I'm pretty sure, from what I've seen in my experiences, 90% of the time, it's not somebody going, here, take this. You'll feel really good. You should
it's you being at a party, having a good time.
And other people are doing it.
Yeah, feeling really good, feeling adventurous. Everything's going well. It's a good night. And then someone's like, hey, you want some of this? And you're like, right? It's never hey. And then they open their trench coat and they're like, oh, drugs.
And then
it's so unrealistic.
Then the SWAT team busts in through the window and you get arrested. See, that's not.
I'm secretly a cop. I was wondering why you were 40.
But that's illegal here.
What is?
Entrapment.
Oh yeah.
What I say it's illegal. They still manage it in certain different ways, but for instance, nothing to do with drugs. Do you remember when George Michael was caught? I don't know if you will. You're only a little bit younger than me, Nick. What? A year younger than
30.
me too. Yeah. 3 years younger than me. Basically in like 98. So obviously George, you know George Michael, right? Who was...
Yeah,
No?
did he do Careless Whisper?
Yes, he did.
He did? Oh
Exactly.
God, yes, I thought I was gonna be wrong.
Like, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. He was in a... Yeah, so like...
Okay.
So like he got caught in a... He got caught in a toilet in LA, I think it was. I'm not 100% on that. Offering to commit a sexual act on another guy, but then that guy was a police officer who arrested him. Something like that. And I remember even thinking at the time, because I'd have been about 11 when it happened, or 12. I remember thinking, well, so they've put him in this position for him to commit a crime, you know, facilitated that for him to make that decision, and then arrested him for it. Like, how does that work? That's crazy. Like, that's crazy you can do that.
Yeah. That, and I actually think, you know, prostituting yourself should be legal personally. So
I do as well. I mean, as much...
Let George Michaels do it, man.
But yeah, but I mean,
live his life.
I don't know if the law's changed on that, because I don't know if it's different because it was a homosexual act as well or whatever. But I mean, the big thing that happened at the time was he hadn't even come out. So like, yeah, it was you know, it was massive, and you know, sadly, like a couple of years ago, he took his own life.
Yeah.
But you think again though, with the prostitution, it's like, whereas it might not be the best idea for you to be a prostitute, because obviously there are many things that come with that, whether you are like physically or mentally abused when it happens or whatever, there are of course, you may have issues after, you know, issues of guilt, the way you feel, which is probably common, but at the end of the day, like the drugs, people are going to do it. They're going to do it, and again, we've never been able to stop it. So how about these men as well, men and women, are kept safe, you know, and they're not being controlled by some, you know, pimp who could not give two shits about their existence. And you know the stories that they're pimps and they beat them and there's nothing they can do because they're already breaking the law, or they get them hooked. A lot of them get them hooked on drugs, so they've got to keep working for them. That's really common. Again, I wouldn't really want to live, you know, I don't really want to live in that world where people can just, you know, just ideally you wouldn't just want people going around just paying for sex, but only because of like the after mental implications of it. And I guess it's the same as sex workers. Like, I don't have a problem with anybody who wants to be like any sort of sex worker, whether it's porn or, you know, cam, whatever. I don't care. And again, that's okay to do. You're still having sex for money some of the time. So it's not, I mean, it is different, obviously, because they're normally both getting paid, but like we can't, again, it's something we can't stop. So if we're not going to be able to stop it, and we've proven we can't stop it, why don't we just make sure that we could give those people the safest environment to do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it is legal in some places in the States, right?
It is, yeah.
Like
Vegas. But I think because there's still, like Vegas, which is Vegas. Nuts. But I think there's still that, like, you know, when we talk about like feelings of guilt afterwards, or how it could take a toll on your mental health, I think because it is illegal in the vast majority of, you know, the US, and because it is looked down upon, because there is that cultural stigma, you know, even in places where it's legal, it doesn't really, they don't really reap the positive benefits of it being legal too much, I don't think. No,
I think you're right. And I think it's, you know, that for some people, you know, and the sex is a really powerful thing, or it should be, you know, in my opinion. And probably everybody who has had, you know, more than a few partners, sexual partners, has felt weird about something in some way at some point, because it's such an emotional thing. So that's where it becomes difficult, you know. And I also don't want people to work doing that for a living and then, you know, hate themselves.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want that either. But then if they're going to do it either way, I'd sooner they be safe, looked after.
Yeah.
You know, regularly checked for any sort of viruses or diseases. You know, for their own benefit more than more than anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people, I know that, like, it sounds like for you, like, there has to be emotional attachment. I know that's the way I am. Like, I can't sleep with someone without there being a lot of emotion in it. But there are definitely some people
now I'm growing up anyway. Yeah. But yeah, carry on.
There are some people who, you know, are able to do that. Like, they don't, like, I mean, there's so many different types of sexuality.
True.
Like, there's asexuality. So there are definitely some people who would probably excel in prostitution, as weird as it sounds, and wouldn't feel bad and wouldn't feel any mental health issues with it, aside from the way that society makes them feel and the way that society is like, you're dirty, you're bad, you're awful.
Yeah.
You know, and so it feels kind of crummy that there are some people who genuinely, like, if they could get health checks and stuff, I mean, there really is no problem with it for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And instead they're forced to do it in a way that does make them feel really, really bad.
And maybe on the back of that, then you could do some kind, you know, some type of you know, mental health assessment as well before.
Oh, definitely.
Before they just, you know, before it's decided, you could, maybe it's a license you get. Which kind of sounds ridiculous, but then it's ridiculous that we have, like in the UK, we have brothels up and down the country where these often women are being controlled by complete scumbags. Yeah, you know, illegally.
You know, I actually don't think it's ridiculous, because think about it. You're dealing
that's what I mean.
with the public in such an emotional way. So even if a prostitute is like, I am okay with having sex, this doesn't make me feel bad about myself, I don't feel connected, I don't feel like the need for anything more. The people that he or she is interacting with, yeah, I mean, we've all known about, like, cam girls who had someone who became obsessed or something. So maybe, like, at least being somewhat aware of mental health when you are connecting with someone in a way that they might take it further, it might mean more for them. It might be good to know a little bit more about that, so that you can protect yourself as well as maybe try and protect them in a way too, you know?
Yeah. And that's probably important for just, you know, everyday people as well, you know, everyday people who commit to this relationship, because everyone is so different. What you might be, and you know, probably when I was younger, I didn't think as of much as it, and I when I was younger, I wouldn't have thought too much, you know. I'm not you know, I wouldn't have worried too much afterwards about anything. So I would assume, because I was younger and dumb, I would assume that they probably were the same, when the truth is that sometimes they probably weren't. But I mean, you live and learn. But it's probably going to become more prevalent as time goes on and people are so busy with everything, and they constantly watch porn, you know, and they think that they can begin to think that this is what it should be like. And again, going back to the social media and stuff, and everybody's like, you know, everyone's like basically naked and like and then people start to think, well, you know, I'm not having sex at the minute, you know, maybe it must be tough, you know, to be alone for a long time. You know, if you're alone for years in the modern era, you could really get you down, because you see all these people, all these perfect faces, and you know, if you've been on your own for a long time, you might be addicted to porn, or that you know, that kind of person who hadn't had that much experience, like you say, they should be like, even the prostitutes, be aware of the other person, because it might be somebody who is completely lonely, and to them it might be one of the few experiences or only experience they've ever had, and to them that would be like you know, it'd be astronomical in comparison to what it would be for the prostitute, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this is kind of a little out of left field, but not really. It's somewhat related. There are actually professional cuddlers.
I've seen
Um,
that.
yeah, have you seen
I've
that?
seen it, yeah.
Yeah. So, it kind of like just what we're talking about reminds me of that, you know, the
Yeah.
fact that some people do really want that connection, but then, and it seems like such an innocent job, a professional cuddler, but then like, you know, somebody else could get really attached. So I think just all of us having an awareness of mental health being taught in school, being able to recognize somebody else's feelings in
Mm.
general is just a good thing. I don't see any negative
Yeah.
like
We seem to be
problems from it.
yeah, we seem to be struggling with that as society at the minute though, don't we? Or a lot of people
Yeah,
seem to be struggling with that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I had
Social media doesn't make it better. In fact, you were talking earlier about Photoshop, and like I love that you brought that up because that has been on my mind so heavily over the past 2 weeks. I'm so frustrated, so absolutely beyond frustrated with the fact that you can't be a normal like looking human being.
yeah,
In fact,
yeah.
there was another, and I don't know, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there was another online personality who had like talked about how Pokey is a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
I was so like the whole night I was just like, what the fuck is wrong with people? First of all, she's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Second, I think, you know, you're talking about how like somebody who sees porn might think that's the way it should be. I think we have that with like Instagram and, you know, Photoshop. Like
Yeah.
people forget that women don't look the same without makeup. We look like normal humans. Also that people have skin texture, people have pimples, people, you know,
Have
have some
cellulite.
really, yeah, cellulite. Like I think like
Uneven skin
90% of,
tone.
yeah, 90% of women have cellulite.
Yeah. But
But you wouldn't
I would
believe it
imagine it's
with,
more.
you
I
know,
would imagine it's more.
oh, probably. Yeah. And so I've been if like my YouTube history is probably horrible. So I was watching a video that was called Why You're Ugly one day, which sounds like it's a clickbait title.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
essentially
yeah.
it was just showing how like you'll never look like an Instagram model because they themselves
Don't look
do
like
not
that.
look like an Instagram model.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been watching a lot of videos like that because I feel like that message needs to like be in everybody's face because I think that so many people have so much pressure to be perfect, and that's just making things worse. I know for me, that's made my anxiety worse.
Yeah.
Just that feeling like, oh God, I don't look
Yeah.
perfect, you know, or
Without
I
a
don't
doubt.
look like these Instagram models. I don't have huge lips or like, and now everyone's starting to look the same.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
that's been heavily on my mind. Is
sometimes the
all of
lips are
that.
freaking ridiculous as well.
Yeah, they are. They are.
And
And
they
it's
have
just that's been so it's
yeah.
been weighing on me.
Yeah, it's completely mental. And again, I think it's young people who are suffering the most from this as well.
Yeah.
Because I think, although, you know, I mean, women have always been the target for that sort of marketing and that sort of media. It's happening to young men now as well.
Yeah.
And it's happening to women, you know, women who are now and men. It's now, well, you don't need to look old anymore, so let's keep you looking young. You should be looking young. What do you mean? 40, that's nothing. You can look great. Just inject this into you, like, every few months a year, and like, you know, make sure you know, oh, we can take a bit of skin out here, and it's like fuck. And like half the time they just look, they don't even look better, they either look worse or they just look weird because they become the point where it's like you just don't look like a real person anymore at all.
Yeah, well, people were saying like Pokimane looks 60 without makeup, and I was like, no, the fuck she doesn't. Like she looks like a normal woman
without makeup, without a makeup on,
without makeup.
And
like that's what people. She actually looks great. She looks
really good without makeup as well.
She does. And so people are like, oh, she looks. First of all, what's wrong with looking fucking 60? If you're older, what's wrong with looking old? Like that's okay, you know. And second, she does not look like, she looks great. And that whole comment thread made me want to punch people. Like, I'm usually so nice, but I was like, a lot of these people, I'm trying to throw hands. Like, it's so frustrating. And so, then you start to think, oh, well, I have laugh lines, whereas Pokemones aren't so bad. Mine are worse than Pokemones. So like, if she looks 60, then I must look like a million. And it's just so shitty. It's so shitty. That, I think, because we're talking about mental health today, social media, you were asking earlier, do we think it's more diagnosed or more prevalent? I think social media is definitely not helping.
No. So, talking about we need to be nice to each other. This week, I've once again been doing my Instagram research. I'm going to screen share this with you, Nick. Actually, they blocked, one of them's blocked me now, so I can't show you properly. But I'm going to share this. Can you see that? Now,
yes.
Yeah, so I actually took a screenshot on my phone for the deleted parts. But again, it's just weird. Like, just something that I came across this week. Where is it? Oh yeah, it was about this basically this guy who in his profile says that he's gay, he's a streamer and whatnot, and it's about this guy, straight guy, who's basically bragging about, how women love him and they want his dick and all this sort of stuff, which is he's just being a dick, basically. He's been a it's all bravado. We've seen it a million times. Obviously it's shitty. Nobody really wants to see it. There's only a very small minority of women that would appeal to anyway. But anyway, so but I saw this guy share it, didn't follow him. And this video is shitty, but he shared this video and it's deleted. And he said, the first comment was like, this is some confusing, unprecedented hetero nonsense that we did not sign up for. And I was like, hetero nonsense? And then somebody else called, Frosty T-Rex was like, he basically said that it, what, and you can see now on the screen, Nick, it says, why are straight men like this? That's what he put. So I just replied saying, yeah, that's right, we're all like that. Like, as if to say, and then he said that comment that I put basically proved his point. So I asked him if stereotypes are okay, because that's what it is. He's just said, why are and I'm like, then this other guy gets involved and makes out that I'm pretending to be one of the good ones, but I just want to fuck everyone. And I'm like, what? I'm not even talking about that. So I put to him coherent and well argued points beyond you guys, I see, because I've quickly come to the conclusion they aren't interested in any facts. They don't want to answer because I've said something about stereotyping, which they don't address at any point. So this DJ Zachary, whatever, I'm sure he's going to drop his mixtape soon, said, oh, Joe, you're so brave posting how you're a straight male on twitter.com, and you certainly aren't like other guys. No, you probably even hold doors open for women, chivalrous. You aren't an icon or a hero because you like women touching your dick. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I expect an answer to why people think it's okay to bash other people and stereotype them. I presume you enjoy the conflict, because if you really wanted straight men who are like that to change, you might try engaging with them instead of spitting venom. And then he says, your first comment in this thread was an argument. That stereotyped yourself. Well, stereotype myself of what? That I stand up for people who are blanketly saying that all hetero people are a certain way. Yeah, I do. Yeah, if you want to stereotype me as that, then yes, you're right. Then he put, you're so dense, you aren't even worth the time it took me to write this post. Have a good life, bud. I hope nice guys like you don't finish last.
You know, it reminds me of, there's actually kind of like a subsect of feminism, where women will say, I hate men, men should die, men are awful. Kind of like the female version of an incel.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
And so I've noticed this trend for like hating on men or hating on cisgender. And I just don't agree with it. I don't get it. You know, I think it's really crappy.
It's really crappy.
I think what they were saying is, yeah, it's definitely stereotyping and it is crappy. And I don't think it's productive or really helps anything. I just think it's probably coming from a place of maybe anger or frustration at someone who's considered not a minority group.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's crappy for sure. I don't really understand it. I know that, you know, I've been thinking a lot about, like we were talking about, how it feels like it's not okay to have skin texture and to be a woman without makeup and stuff. And I've been thinking a lot about feminism and what it means to me. Yeah. And I know that one of the things that it doesn't mean to me is hating men. You can, you know, say, wow, this person in particular is crazy or an asshole or a narcissist or a dick. And you don't have to say men suck, cisgender, you know, suck. I mean, yeah, that guy you're talking about, I think he's a tool.
Yeah.
I just do. But, you know, Snack Daddy's fantastic. You know, like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Those are like, there's so much variety within every group. And yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that trend.
Do you think the thing I really struggle with is that not one of them, when I make these points, not a single one of them can come up with any sort of coherent or reasonable reason to speak to people like that. All they say is they just throw everything straight back and say you're part of the problem. When I'm asking questions, like, or they just go, typical cis, or hetero, look at me going for attention. And it's like, I'm actually just trying to get my head around why you claim to be, or how you claim to be, for equal rights, trans rights, black rights, and all this, and make out you this fantastic person who really wants everybody to get on and do well inside. But then whoever the majority is, oh, well, fuck those guys. Fuck all of them, because they're all the fucking same. If I don't think this at all, but what if I bowl in and say, well, all these gay people, they're all the fucking same. They love a party and stay out too late. Yeah. And I was
just thinking that.
I'd never employ one.
Men suck or cis suck. Like, what if someone was like this is typical of
homosexuals,
straight man. Like, what if you were what if you were like, yeah, this is such a bi thing. Why are bis like this? Like, it's just a shitty thing to do in general, right? I mean, you shouldn't say that about anybody.
I'd probably get my account suspended for saying that. I could probably get my account suspended for saying that. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure I could get my Twitch account suspended for saying that. Yeah. But I know, so the first guy that originally posted it, he never replied, and he's the one that's blocked me, right? Mm-hmm. Now, he has a reasonable following on Twitch. And I'm like, I'm wondering, because of this, all his followers, and they just retweet it without thinking. I'm thinking he's probably saying this on Twitch, and he's probably getting away with it. He's probably getting away with it, even though it is... It's a complete prejudice. It might be an inverted and not the prejudice that a lot of people are used to, but it's a complete prejudice. Now, I don't feel sorry for myself because I'm a white male and like there's dicks like that. I feel sorry, or I feel like he's causing problems for the good people of the LGBTQI+ community. Because because he's trying to say fuck all straight people. I don't want to interact with them. I won't want to have anything to do with them. We're trying to get closer together, and you're just being you're just being a complete dick and splitting everybody
that's the
up.
thing that stands out to me is like, you know, being bisexual myself, in my mind, it doesn't make sense to attack like cisgender, for example, because if we want to be accepted by the majority, if we want for being gay or bisexual or part of the LGBTQIA plus community in any way to just be normal and not really thought about and not, you know, looked down upon, not really discussed, it just is, you just are allowed to be that way and it's okay and you're equal, then you really need the majority to accept that, and you can't do that if you're attacking them. So it doesn't seem super productive to me. But like I said, I disagree with that mentality. I don't like saying, oh, cisgender men, or oh, I hate all men, or whether you're a feminist or part of the LGBTQIA plus community or whatever you are. I disagree with having those blanket statements just in general. And I don't think because you are a minority, it makes it any better to make blanket statements. And we all do it sometimes, right? But I think
everyone's done it.
Yeah, you know, and it's human nature and it's habit, but I think that when you're called out on it, or, you know, if you're trying to be better, I think that's one of the things we need to let go of, is making blanket statements, regardless of if it's a minority or a majority or whoever we're describing. I just think they're not helpful.
No.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. So, because I have looked, like, there are places you can go on Reddit, for example, where they're like, all women are awful, all men are awful, all cisgender are awful, all gays are awful, and I'm like, oh my fuck, like, just all around it kind of annoys me and makes me roll my eyes.
It seems like there's a few people who are really making you know, these movements incredibly toxic. You know, and we have to remember that it's the minority of those people. Mm-hmm. But the problem is on platforms like Twitter, it can gain steam pretty quickly. And then the issue I have is that people become scared to question it. Because questioning it is not saying you're against it. It's asking for reasonable reasons, you know, or evidence why it's so. Like for instance, on the other hand, there is no evidence that says that gay people are bad people. That as an example. So, and you know, that's why if you argued with real homophobes, they'd be the same. They wouldn't have an answer because there isn't one. There's nothing. You know, if there was, you know, if there was some sort of evidence that suggests they had an evil gene, you know what? Like, then that would be a thing, wouldn't it? But it isn't, because there isn't a reason. It's exactly the same for these people, exactly the same, but they do it the other way around. It's incredible.
Well, you know, the idea is that we're all human. We're all people.
Yeah, exactly.
We all, you know, there's so many different ways to be a human and a person within a group, whether it's, you know, I'm gay and this is how I express my sexuality, or I'm straight and this is how I express that, or whatever. Like, there's so many different varying types of people within any subset. So stereotyping really doesn't work. And if the idea is to love everyone to be equal, because we're all human, we're all people, we cannot help the way we look, we cannot help, you know, some of these things, right? So then it feels like then saying I dislike men or I dislike cisgender fundamentally goes against the principle of we're all people and we cannot help what we're working with, and that's okay, and we should be loved and equal anyways. So I do think it's honestly an attack on less about the entire group and more of a frustration with another group's privilege, and really just comes out of anger.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I really think that's where it's coming from.
I think it has to be, because, you know, most of the people from the LGBTQI plus community that I know they're obviously, if you understand more about coming from being the minority, or being different more than most people, and that's why the majority of the people in that community are so welcoming and open, and certainly my friends in that community are. And actually, of course, when things are serious and important, they want to talk about them and want change. They're very passionate about that.
Yeah.
But they also don't take themselves incredibly seriously. And I think part of the reason for that is that they know, because they're intelligent enough to know they can't just go around and try and convert everybody to see it their way. They can't just go and show everybody that, hey, we're okay. But they know that if they have a bit of a, we just do what we can, we be good people. We don't try and push on other people, but we will stand up for what's right. And obviously over time, that's what has worked and put us in a better direction than we were 50 years ago, for instance.
Yeah.
Like, so much better, without a doubt. So much more accepted. I really hope that this minority of people who are part of this community don't ruin it for the rest of the community and undo the years and years and years of good work that the community's been doing, because that'd be absolutely heartbreaking to see. And we've said before that some of the people that are really trying to push it are just doing it to be seen, to be pushing it, or they're an activist, so they are doing it because it's right and they believe in it, which is fine. But then you are not considering the consequences, and actually it won't affect them long term. It'll affect the people who are transgender, who are homosexual, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, all the sexuals, whatever. That's what worries me, because of the platforms, as we know, with the social media platforms we have and how quickly these things can spread. But I'm not gonna say the name, but one of the people who comes in my channel watched our video, Nick, or one of our videos, and they said to me, do you know what, Joe? Sometimes, she says, I'm not really like that, but sometimes I share stuff without thinking. Because you just press retweet, right? Bang. It's done, and it's somebody else's. You might have, a lot of people read when they either first thing in the morning or last thing at night, so they're tired in both circumstances, or when they're in a rush and they just go, but I like that, bang. And they were like, do you know what? It's made me think, I'm gonna think about what I'm actually retweeting. And I was just like, do you know what? I forgot to tell you actually, Nick. I was like, do you know what? That's like, it's kind of like, it's as good as when somebody comes on the stream and says, you know what, you stream really helps me, because it's like, even if we've just made like one person think, just think, not necessarily wholeheartedly agree, because nobody will always 100% agree with anyone else, but just if you still want to send it, if you've given it a thought and thought about the repercussions before, then I'm like, do you know what, that's up to you, because I've got so much respect that you've actually taken the time to think about what it is you're saying or repeating. But it's too easy just to hit that retweet button, right?
Yeah, I actually really appreciate that you shared that with me, because obviously social media has been hugely on my mind with what people share, what people show, showing something that's too real or too raw, and then getting just the meanest comments for it. Like, social media has really been weighing heavily on me. So if we could have anybody, like, just to have one person really think like, hey, should I share this? Is this really contributing in a positive way? Like, that's really great, because that's been something that, like, man, it's been just like really right here. And I'm like, I swear over the past like 2 weeks, I'm like, what can I do? What can I do? Like, what needs to change? Like, how can I help create a positive impact? And now it's like, well, you have. And that feels
exactly. Yeah. And that, like, it's, I I guess without sort of thinking about it too much, because like it's just we wanted to do this. Yeah, it's definitely something that I want to do. I would pretty much guarantee that Nick wants to do as well. Is just make people think, just stop and think. That's probably the most important thing you can do to begin to consider somebody else's feelings or point of view. Put yourself that empathy that's so lacking right now.
Definitely.
So lacking.
And vice versa. If I say, and I'm pretty sure Joe agrees, if I say something that you disagree with, or maybe it's factually wrong or whatever, like seriously, let us know.
Yeah, just
call
let
us
us know.
out if you want to have a discussion on something. Let's have a discussion. You know, just because this is a podcast and we are in the podcast does not mean you're not a participant and you're not part of it. If you're listening and you want to join in, feel free to comment like, hey, I would like to see more of a discussion about this, or reach out to one of us, because I think that people get this idea that because somebody has a podcast, then they believe what they say is set in stone. And we're just sharing our opinions and our experience. And, you know, if we're wrong about something, I'm pretty sure we both are like lifelong learner types.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Know. Yeah.
We're gonna start taking letters. Like next week there'll be one and it'll be like, hey, my name's Timmy. I'm 14 from Colorado. I think Pokemon is a mega babe. Is it okay to simp? And then Nick will
yes!
Nick will take you through whether she thinks it's all right and what you should do.
1,000%. I think simp is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard.
It is stupid.
I know I've said it. I think it's so fucking stupid.
Yeah,
it's
we say it because
you support a man, but you're simping for a woman.
Yeah,
like,
I know. Like that's like I actually got asked today. They were like, how many people have you had simping for you? And I was like, well, what's your definition of a simp?
Yeah.
And like 3 or 4 people came up with different answers. I was like, well, there you go then. Like, I can't answer that, can I? Because like
simp is fucking stupid. It's okay to support somebody whether they're attractive or not. If they're attractive, so I mean, who fucking, first of all, you can support them because they're attractive. Sure, why not? Fuck it. That's your choice. You can support them and maybe they are attractive, but that's not why you're supporting them. Like, it doesn't matter. Simp is dumb.
Do you think that I mean, I'm pretty sure that this came around from people who have been streaming for like 4 years to 0 people, and they are like, this is not fair. This is not fair. Because I tell you now, I like, if I go through recommended or, you know, whatever, or go through games categories and go lower down, there are like fucking hundreds of hot women streaming who do not have that kind of following.
Yeah.
And you'd think as well, if you were a simp, you'd want to go for the small streamer, right? Because you can get attention. Yeah, you can get the attention from her. So like, and then it goes back to it's easier if you're a woman, right?
Yeah. It's just shaming people for supporting women, which I think is
it's bullshit.
It's so fucking stupid. When people are like, oh, you simp. I'm like, fuck yeah, I simp. Like, we're taking this word back. Yeah, I fucking simp. There's some
Pokemon,
hot woman out there. Yeah.
Alinity, Belle, Delphine. Yeah, all of them.
Belle Delphine. That's my type. But maybe I follow her on Twitter. I'm just saying, and if she wanted to follow me back, okay.
Hey, look, I only don't follow her on Twitter because I'm embarrassed somebody will find me and dox. No, I'm not joking.
That was actually like before I hit that follow button, I was like, do I really want to let everyone know?
They're gonna be like, oh, you follow Belle.
Yeah,
hell's yeah. Yeah, I love that stuff. Why not? But like, it just, I don't know how people get so angry about it. Like, just, she's not, if you don't want to see her, then just mute her, block her, whatever. You'll never have to see her. It's as simple as that, and you can go about your day and forget about her.
It's really jealousy. It's either jealousy that, you know, they're doing better than you, jealousy that they're hotter than you. I don't know. Like
Maybe.
it's just jealousy that they're getting more. It all stems from jealousy in my mind. Like if you're like the type who's like, oh, you're
It's gotta
simping.
be.
Like I can't think of a reason other than jealousy and hate to pull out that
Yes.
bullshit. Unless you're
Yeah.
just memeing and like you're saying it sarcastically, you know.
Yeah.
But like if you really mean it, like I can't think of anything good that says about you personally.
No.
So, and then if you're like, if you call them out, then all of a sudden it's like, well, you're not that hot anyways, and you're actually ugly, and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, so like, it's don't support her because she's ugly, and have you seen her without makeup? And oh my god, but then also, oh my god, all these people are supporting her because she's hot. Like, which is it, man? I think they're just
yeah, I
they're
know
saying
it's
shit that
weird.
fits their narrative because they're jealous.
You can guarantee like half those dudes as well that are saying that like without makeup and stuff is because they've never probably woken up with a woman in the morning.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like because they may be in for a shock when they actually do.
Yeah, there are those guys who are like, take her swimming on a first date, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What you're telling me is that women buy makeup to look different. Because I'm just saying, if I spend $60 on a fucking highlighter and I look the same, I'm gonna be pissed. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure most women will be like, well, yeah, that's like the idea, right? Because otherwise, why would I spend so much money on makeup? Because it's fucking expensive, right?
it's the same guys who are like, I want a chick who looks natural, and like their example image is someone with like crazy hair extensions, falsies, and 9 pounds of makeup.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like this. It's like, no.
By falsies, she means eyelashes, obviously.
Yeah. The eyelashes. But yeah, I mean, it's just, man, these fucking people. These people. I just can't. My bullshit meter is like tolerance.
I think most of them are that like that guy who sits like that guy who ends up really old at the end of the bar and just like has too much to drink most nights and is just like so fucking negative about everyone and everything and like has no like their family don't talk to him anymore and like they're just but I don't know how people become that and stay that as well for like
I don't know. You know, I've actually kind of like done a fair amount of research on incels. I've been on the incel subreddit. Don't go there.
No, I was going to say I'm not
have any faith in humanity. It's horrible. It's really horrible. And you know, the overwhelming sense that I get from these people, aside from like hate, is entitlement. That's really like it's a lot of fucking entitlement, a lot of entitlement, to the point where like some people are like, yeah, we deserve to be issued women and wives and girlfriends. Like the government should issue that to us. We should all have one. And some people get all the girls. And like, if you're ugly, you're made fun of. If you're hot, you're like, you know, a whore. And like, it's just a lot.
Wait, do I get to pick like race, hair color of these women? Do I get like you can do that though, right? You can like
so like I honestly
mail order brides. Right?
Yeah, I mean I guess you can do mail order brides.
Like no, it's a thing. Like you could like from Russia or like Thailand or Cambodia or
I knew a dude who I thought had a mail order bride. He didn't, but like I wasn't sure for a little while. Do
you know what? I saw a couple of documentaries on like mail order brides, and some of these guys, right? Like they knew what the story was. They knew that they could offer them a better life or whatever, and they decided to come over. And they don't care. Like some of them are just so happy. Like it's like, do you know what? I mean, if she's agreeing and she's okay, like
I mean, I'm not gonna hate. They're not harming anyone if they're happy.
But yeah, it's a very weird thing. Can you imagine like? Because the documentary I saw was this guy, like, basically he went to an East Asian country and was like, hey, you know, my name is this, I do this for a living, I live here, you could come back with me, and like, if like he spoke to like 3 or 4 women, and then like the last one he spoke to was like, yes, I'd like that, and I was like, oh, okay, that's it then.
I mean, hey, she's agreeing.
Yeah. He'll probably trial her out, you know, like they don't have to get married straight away. I don't know.
It's like Netflix, like you try it and then it's like, do you want to continue?
Do you want to continue? Because if you continue, it's going to cost you money, like for him, significant amount of money, like not just like an $8 recurring subscription. Like you're gonna have to, but yeah. Interesting because it's like a culture cross as well, and she was like, oh, I'm really looking forward to like cooking for you and cleaning for you, and I was like, yeah, do you know what?
So wait, where do I get one? I'm kidding. Unless somebody wants to come cook for me, like, what's up?
Snack Daddy's gonna go mad. He's like, what's wrong with my cooking?
No, Snack Daddy actually does do all the cooking.
Yeah,
my cooking is not really that fantastic, and then like I'll try to cook something for myself. Like the other day it was like there's this toast that I have that's like it has goat cheese and pear and honey and cinnamon and walnuts and it's incredible. And Snack Daddy makes it for me most of the time because every time I make it it's worse. It's just worse. And so one day I was complaining about it. I was like, how come my fucking bread it's like burnt on this side? Not he's like, oh yeah, I switched the toast because like I guess it doesn't heat evenly. I was like, I never fucking occurred to me. It was like I was like, switch the fucking toast.
years.
So he's just better.
It's taking you years to find that out. But like, as what you do is if you're in England, because obviously everyone drinks tea in England, so like whoever's going to make the tea, one person makes it. It doesn't matter. Like obviously normally if you're in your own house, but say like you work in, say when I've worked on a building site or whatever, it's like, right, I'm going to go and make the tea, or it's your turn to make the tea. But if you make the tea badly, then they're probably not going to ask you to do it again, right? So you sure that's not what you're doing, Nick? Like, oh, but...
No, I'm really... Because I have to eat it. I'm not making it for Snack Daddy. It's for me.
Yeah, but
and I'm always severely disappointed in it. Actually, I did... What was it? I made something the other day, and I actually had to throw it away, and then Snack Daddy remade it for me. I don't remember. It was fucking trash, though. It was really bad. I was like... I tried to eat it because like I felt really bad because I knew that if I didn't eat it, like Snack Daddy would have to recook it, and I was like trying to eat it, and finally I was like, I can't. This is fucking awful.
Where did you get Snack Daddy from? Because I feel like I need one.
Costco. Costa. Good price. Yeah. No, Snack Daddy. He's worked in kitchens though, so I feel like he has an unfair advantage. Right. But
you're not complaining.
No, yeah, I'm not complaining for sure. And then he's always like, I want to take a cooking class, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, sounds like hey, how much is that going to cost?
Okay, for sure, yeah.
Just get the money out quick. Yeah, it's
I support you, babe. I support your endeavors.
Yeah, it's
take a cooking class to make me happy.
It's funny though how like obviously like for me growing up, my dad did most of the cooking. Like in your whole household, Snack Daddy does most of the cooking, and it's like. There are still places on this earth where that is so bizarre. That would be like seen as so weird. Yeah. So weird for that to happen. Like
absolutely.
I'm not like saying that's wrong, they should change it. Because if it works within a culture, it works. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. And like I saw this documentary, and this woman, like she was chomping at the bit to almost be somebody's wife, you know, and be able to be comfortable and cook and clean and look after, you know, do this like sort of such, you know, a stereotypical wife role. But it was just, you could just see in her face and or like her gesticulation and stuff. It was just, she wanted that more than anything in the world. You think, well, you know,
well, I think it has to be fair, right? Like it has to be agreed upon, like, you know, and it has to make sense. Right. Like there has to be a division of labor. People have to use their strengths. Snack Daddy's a better cook than me, so he cooks, right? Like I think that's, you know, some people have this idea of a traditional role, and it's like, no, how about divide and conquer? Who has more time to do this? Who's better at doing it? Like let's make rational, logical decisions rather than having someone who's not as good take care of something, and then you have crap dinner. Or like dividing it in a way that's going to burn someone out and make the marriage unhappy. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I don't really, it's not that I'm against cooking myself. I'm not as good.
Yeah.
It's not as good.
Do you ever think like, because obviously one of the biggest differences in the last like 100 years, one of the biggest differences in society was is women going to work, which totally for. You do what you want to do. There's no reason why women shouldn't be at work. But that dramatically changed people's social lives, people's home lives.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, rightly or wrongly. And whereas I say I'm all for that, I wonder if that side of things hadn't changed. Obviously, there will have always been women who were like completely oppressed and weren't able to do anything about it. You know, they were slapped around by their husbands. You know, and I know it still happens now, but back then it was almost, you know, you see stuff from the 50s of like men slapping women like because they've done something wrong, and it was like almost a common thing. Like like it was it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was an okay thing, but it like now, if people find out that they've been like a man's been beating up their wife, people go and like you get vigilantes, you know, like we're gonna go and find him and, you know, string him up or whatever. But back then it was almost like acceptable, and obviously that's not okay. But I just wonder on the other side of things, like if it had remained like that, and I don't think that's what I'd want, but if it had remained like that, would it be different? Because people would be satisfied with less income to the family home, and things would be shared more within families, but then also there'd be less unemployment because you know, there'd be jobs for all the men. It's really and I don't get me wrong, this isn't what I want or I think should happen, but it's interesting to think about where if just that one thing hadn't changed, how different things or how similar things would be. I don't know. It's it's really interesting. Or would it have just boiled up to the point where you get?
I think it would have boiled up.
We get another round of suffragettes, you know, like who are willing to die for proper rights again. You know, probably. I think you're probably right, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, imagine like being at home and like, let's say you want to be an astronomer, or I mean, you want to be a doctor and you're told no.
You've just got to stay at home and clean and cook.
Yeah, you
can
only take that for so long. Because I mean, staying at home is fucking boring. Like honestly, if Snack Daddy and I, which we aren't having kids, but if we were having kids, I was always like, if we ever had kids, just so you know, you'd be the one staying home. Hell no, I'm not a stay-at-home mom. It's not fucking happening.
No,
I don't want to cook and clean and take care of a child. So I mean, and Snack Daddy was like, I don't know if I can do that. Fortunately, we both don't want kids, so it works out really well for us. Happening. But you know, sometimes men want to be stay-at-home dads. And women definitely. I mean, to be a stay-at-home mom, and I'm not putting down stay-at-home moms. If that's your gig, that's your gig. But for some people, that's gonna be boring, and it's not gonna be what you want to do. And I just think that it would have eventually boiled up because we deserve the choice. We deserve to be able to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's okay. You know, that it's one of the hardest jobs, I think, because I don't want to clean up vomit.
Geez. I think one of the biggest problems that comes around with that, from what I see, because I've not been in that situation, is that often there's not enough like sharing. From what I see from a lot of people with kids is like, we have to do this together. Like, if I'm not going out, you're not going out. Which is bizarre to me because I'm like, there's two of you. You know, one night, turns. Like, one, obviously you're not always going to be able to both go out because you've got kids, but like, you need some release, right? So why can't one of you go? And then like, but people get some people get very, very jealous, very possessive, and it's like, well, if I'm suffering, you're suffering, basically. Which is kind of weird, and that sort of doesn't appeal to me. And I think if I am in that position, then there's no way I would hopefully get in that position with anybody who wouldn't want to share that sort of responsibility and understand that you'd need time. Because I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a parent, but I'm pretty sure you need time to yourself. Because it's the same with everything. You can't be doing the same thing. You need breaks, and whether that's childcare or whatever. Like,
one thing I will say that I notice is that there's the tendency for women to be considered like the child bearers.
Mm-hmm.
But because women are working now, I feel like there's this uneven shift towards women working all day and then coming home and being the caregiver.
Yes.
And I think that's very unfair. And of course, I'm not in that situation. That's not something I'll
No,
ever have
yeah,
to
I
deal with.
think, yeah, I've seen that.
But I
I've
just see
seen
that
that.
so much. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I've seen that. I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot. And again, hopefully that's something that changes over time. But then,
yeah, I think it will. I think
it will.
You know, as we break down like masculinity, like toxic masculinity.
Yeah,
you know,
of course. But then
that like I'm a dad and I'm not gonna, you know, read my kid a
Yeah.
bedtime story or give him a bath or be the sensitive one or be the one cooking. I think that's fading more and more, and it's becoming more acceptable to
yeah, definitely
just show up and bring your part and
Yeah.
you know, help, be a team.
I think the only problem with it is that at the end of the day, well, I say this could change, but it's always going to be the woman who has who unless you're adopting or, you know,
Yeah.
it's always going to be the woman who gives birth.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so there's always going to be some sort of extra bond.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you can't be as good a parent, but there's always going to be that initial extra bond. They're always going to have to get over that initial giving birth for one. I mean, no thanks.
Yeah, no.
They're going to have to, and this is a problem. And then you go to the work thing, and it's like they're going to need to have time off work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it gets like grey and complicated, and like then you start talking about pay gaps, which is obviously wrong. But then the companies will say, well, the women aren't, you know, they could have children, and then you argue, well, I'm a woman, but I don't want to have children. So it's like it gets,
and then men don't get as much time off for their children, which is really shitty, man.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
They want to be home, but I guess like, you know, because company stuff, that's a whole fucking thing. But like, I mean, like just within the home, you know, I want to see more like when both people get home, it's not mom's cooking dinner.
Yeah.
You know, it's maybe
it's
mom's cooking dinner, but dad's doing the bath. You know what I mean? Like more of a division of labor. I think that marriage is very much a team effort.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter. I mean, just split it up in a way that makes people as happy as you can. It's never going to be perfect, but
yeah.
I mean, the happiest would be if neither of you had to do anything except for just like, I don't know, chill on Reddit maybe. But like, you know, things need taken care of, shit needs done. So then like
Nick really loves Reddit. She really loves Reddit.
A little bit.
You want to find Nick? Get on Reddit.
There's a Belle Delphine Reddit. What can I say? What can I say? You know?
I just need to Google
something.
Is.
There really is. But no, I read a lot of like 2-sentence horror story and no sleep. Do I go to the Belle Delphine subreddit? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe.
maybe that's
we won't know.
Maybe that's something for another time. I want to thank you, Nick, for being so open and honest with regards to our main topic today.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody has any questions for me, and I feel like Joe is very open as well. Like, I mean, if you guys have any questions about mental health or want to share your experience or want to know more about our experience, I'm certainly happy with talking about it. I'd like to destigmatize it as much as possible.
Yeah, always happy to talk. And do remember, if you are feeling down, if you are feeling strange, if you're not feeling yourself, do please reach out to and seek medical advice and talk to somebody who you know you can trust. Can't emphasize that enough. Me and Nick are very experienced and knowledgeable about this, but we are not medical professionals.
Mm-hmm.
So, thanks a lot, Nick. We'll be back next week. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.